Hey everyone, today we are talking about those cool jobs you can get once you earn your geology degree. I'm Tracy Diane, I'm a geologist and an author, and if you love rocks and books as much as I do, I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. So I get a lot of questions from people like, is it fun to be a geologist? What type of degree do I have to have? What kind of classes do I have to take? So I thought today we'd dive into some of those questions and then I'd touch on a few of the different professions that you can have as a geologist. And I hope that if you are watching this and you also are a geologist, put in the comments below what your job is so that we can explore even more options. The first question I get is it fun to be a geologist? And the answer to that is yes. If you like rocks and you like puzzles, then geology may be the perfect profession for you. There's some science involved, there's some math involved, and there's a lot of clue detecting involved. So I'm a closet jigsaw puzzle freak. So if you're like me and you love solving things that are difficult, geology is excellent. The next question I get is, how do I get a job in geology? Well, first you need to go to college and get a degree in geology. This is one of those professions where you do need a background in order to be able to get a job as a geologist. There's a lot of different areas of geology, which makes it super exciting, but it also makes it somewhat highly specialized. So when you're in high school, if you think that you might be interested in this kind of career path, see if you can get in touch with geologists in your area. People love talking about their jobs and they will talk your ear off if you start asking them questions about where they went to school and the classes they took and classes they wish they had taken. So don't be afraid to reach out to people in your area that are in the profession that you think you might be interested in and just get their perspective and some information, and that will help you. You can also take a bunch of science and math classes that will kind of give you a leg up once you get into college. Now, when you're looking at schools, one thing I want you to do is reach out to those schools before you apply. See if you can get in touch with the geology professors and find out what the professors focus on. Some schools will focus on environmental more, while others will focus on hard rock. So you want to talk to the professors or students or anybody that you can find that will give you some details about what can you expect when you enroll there and what kind of jobs their graduates get once they get out of school. Another good question is, do I need a professional license to work as a geologist? And the answer for most jobs is yes. Most states have a licensing program for geologists, and you have to be licensed in order to practice in that state. Now, a lot of the states use something called the ASBOG test, which is a standardized test that you take after you've been out of school for a few years and you've got some experience. You take that test, and once you pass it, you will get your license in that state. Now, since several states in the country, and I'm talking about the United States, since several states in the country use that same standardized test, you can get a license in multiple states once you go through a paperwork process. It's called reciprocity. For example, I'm in North Carolina. I have a license in North Carolina. If I wanted to do work in South Carolina, then all I have to do is contact South Carolina, fill out some paperwork, get them my scores from that standardized test, and they confirm that I am licensed in North Carolina, and I can get a South Carolina license without having to take the test again. There's a lot of states that will work with you on that, so just make sure if you're working in multiple states to contact the state licensing board, and in most states it's called whatever state board of licensing for geologists or something similar. So you can Google it and find out pretty easy who you need to talk to. There are some states, like I know West Virginia has a completely different licensing procedure. So just make sure when you start working that you find out what those are. Oftentimes you have to have a couple years of experience plus taking that test or whatever test they have to get your license. So you have a little time once you get out of school to figure out how to get that license done. But you definitely want to look into that. It's very beneficial for your long-term career to have that license. So let's talk about some of the jobs that you can have once you get that geology degree. The first one we're going to talk about is environmental consulting. So I've worked in environmental consulting for a long time, off and on, and the thing you want to know about it is it's different than being an environmental activist. An activist will oftentimes campaign for stronger environmental laws, where a consultant will make sure that businesses and industries follow those laws. So they're somewhat similar, but a little bit different. So if you have a geology degree and you go into environmental consulting, a lot of what you'll be doing is making sure that your clients follow the regulations. I've often worked in situations where the client has had a spill, like they've released gasoline onto the ground, and we'll go in and we'll assess that and we'll help them get it all cleaned up so that the soil and groundwater is safe. And that's basically the job of both environmental activists and consultants. Our job is to make sure that the soil and the groundwater and the air are safe for everyone. The next job I want to touch on is petroleum geology. I worked as a petroleum geologist when I was in graduate school, and it was perhaps one of the most fun jobs I've ever had, because what they're doing is looking for natural resources under the ground where you can't see them. So basically you're taking data like soil data, groundwater data, geophysical data, and you're putting all these clues together and trying to map what you think the subsurface looks like. Based on that information, they can guess where they think oil and natural gas might be hiding underground. It is really fun if you love problem solving and you really like analyzing data and you like being both inside and outside. The next job I want to talk about is paleontologist. This one is really cool because you're kind of a cross between a geologist and a biologist, because you have to know about rocks and how the earth forms and what the rock layers are telling you, but you also have to know a lot about animals and old animals, some that are extinct now, and whether you can find fossils of these animals, and if you do, what that tells you. So this is a really good combination of geology and biology, I think. And I think that being a paleontologist would be super cool. You could work out in the field trying to find fossils. You could work at museums. There's a lot of opportunities in that field. Now, the next job that I want to touch on is hydrogeology. And hydrogeologists can work in a lot of fields. You could have some in petroleum, you could have some in environmental consulting, but basically a hydrogeologist is someone who specializes in groundwater. And groundwater is a really important resource for our Earth. So specializing in hydrogeology gives you the ability to work in a bunch of different fields, but you're focused on making sure that groundwater quality is good and helping people understand how groundwater moves underneath the Earth's surface and how it ties into streams and lakes and oceans. So this is a really good career path to look at if you want to have opportunities in a lot of different fields. So the next job we're going to talk about is being a geology professor. So if you go to school and you get a higher degree like a master's or a PhD, you can often teach at a university. This is a really interesting career because it combines not only teaching but also doing research. A lot of colleges will have their professors not only teach the students but also work with them on research projects, and then they can take that research and present it at conferences or publish it, and it furthers the science along. So if you think that you might want to do a combination of research and teaching, professor might be the perfect thing for you. If you want to teach but you don't want to do research, definitely look into being a science teacher at the elementary, middle school, or high school level, because getting kids interested in science early on is one of the best things you can do, because we need more scientists in the world. All right, one of the next ones we're going to talk about is being a regulatory geologist. Now, these are folks that work for the government, either the state, county, federal government, and typically their job is to help businesses and industries work within the environmental regulations so that we can make sure that the air is clean and the water and the soil are safe. They also are very helpful if you want to develop a piece of property that is contaminated. They can help you figure out how to do that. So they're really beneficial from both sides of the spectrum, whether you're an industry and you need to comply with regulations, or if you're, trying to start a new business and you just want to take something that's contaminated and make it better. Regulatory people are really great at helping you navigate that. And in my experience in working with them, there is nothing they aren't willing to do to help you out. So if you think that this might be the avenue you want to go, where you can work with a bunch of different people on a daily basis and be exposed to lots of different types of projects and problem solving, being a regulatory geologist may be the perfect thing for you. Now, there is one type of geology that I have never gotten to try that I would love to give it a go, and that is being a volcanologist. Studying volcanoes, I think, looks exciting. So if any of you have a project out there and you need someone to come along, hit me up. I would love to go see a volcano in person. So if you're watching this video and you are a geologist or you're a budding geologist, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What are some other great jobs that people with geology degrees can get today? Or what do you want to do in the future? I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.